At the same time, of course, we know that China is building its own space program. It plans on going to the moon and Mars. So you put all this together, and then I should note that over a period of about 6 months, 8 Chinese airports had to be closed down because of UFO activity over the airport. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask your listeners, does any listener happen to recall any American airport ever being closed down because of UFO activity over the airport? Never happened. Now, there was an effort in China to sort of minimize this by saying that, well, they think this is being caused by all these Chinese billionaires that are buying these jets. They're private jets, and they're somewhat like renegades. They just sort of fly wherever the hell they want, and they're flying through restricted airspace and causing these airports to close down. Now, I suppose one might believe that, but not me. The idea that a freshly minted Chinese billionaire is going to risk losing his life by flying his airplane through restricted space in China, I don't think so. And so you had 8 airports closed down. There's film and video of some of these events, and that news has all gotten out. And so consequently, something is going on in China that makes me think that we have to consider the possibility that China is prepared to act on the disclosure. And I can assure you that the geopolitical implications of communist China being the disclosure nation, the nation that finally reveals the extraterrestrial presence, accompanied with, an appropriate amount of evidence, are non-trivial for the United States. And so once again, I speak to those people in Washington, D.C., the ones that have been running such an effective government for the last 30 years, these crackerjack bureaucrats, politicians, that maybe they want to step back and think about what the hell they're doing and realize that if they think they're going to be able to keep this thing under wraps much longer, they are living in fantasy land. And they have got to grow up and wake up and get about the business of advancing human civilization. We are not alone in the universe, and they had better damn well acknowledge that pretty soon, or they are going to look colossally stupid.
Yeah. Well, on that line of questioning, I think it will take more than just science and evidence to prove, the UFO phenomenon. It will also take political leaders to come out and say, that they're real. And
but that is not proving it. That is acknowledging it. The ET presence has been proven many times over. What the government hasn't done is acknowledged it. Now, some people may say, well, what does it matter? If it's been proven, what does it matter? I'll tell you why. In the last 64 years, not a single college in the United States has taught an accredited course on the UFO ET phenomena. Not a single one. I believe there have been a couple courses at Temple University under the aegis of David Jacobs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I don't really think they're not part of an accredited program. A couple of continuing ed courses somewhere. But of the 5,000 universities and colleges in the United States, in 6 decades, they haven't taught a single course. The Congress hasn't held a hearing on it since 1968.
Wow.
The Congress won't even address the issue. The media, while it's covering it much better than it used to, still doesn't cover it appropriately. None of the financial, or rather the philanthropic grant institutions will fund any research. You can't get any research support for this, funding support. Even private investors will not, private philanthropists will not fund it. And so the reason for that is the lack of government acknowledgement. Once the government acknowledges it, then the universities will teach it, the Congress will address it, the press will cover it, and the grant institutions will fund it. Until then, we don't get any of that. And so formal acknowledgement is absolutely critical to this country dealing with this issue and moving on, and not the least of the reasons for that.
Why do you think?
For the last 60
why do you think?
60 years. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Why do you think our government is trying to hide all this stuff? What's the reason behind all of that? I mean, I have my own ideas, but what do you think? Why are they trying to hide this?
From 1947 to 1991, the issue was absolutely not going to be allowed to come forward because too many people, good people, inside the military intelligence community felt that introducing the formal acknowledgement of the extraterrestrial presence into a Cold War scenario where thousands of nuclear warheads were on spring-loaded notice to be launched between the United States and the Soviet Union was simply too risky. There was just the potential for too many unintended consequences. And so until the Cold War was resolved and those missiles were detargeted, maybe even reduced in numbers, it was not going to happen. And in addition to that, there were those that said, well, we also don't want it to happen because we want to understand this technology better. We want to see how we can weaponize it. We'd like to know more about the ETs and their intentions, et cetera, et cetera. And so from 47 to 91, it wasn't going to happen. So there were efforts to try to make it happen.
Mr. Bassett,
viable.
Right, I just want to know.
Viable.
Okay, I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
It doesn't become viable until after the Cold War. That starts in 92. But the world was very complicated, and there were a lot of problems. Right after the Cold War, we were immediately in a war with Kuwait. Mm-hmm. And then George Bush, H.W. Bush lost the election to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the wrong president to be the disclosure president. The military intelligence community did not want that. We had another war develop, of course, under Bush. Bush was not particularly well thought of by the military intelligence community. They weren't keen on him being the disclosure president. And so for the last 20 years, I guess you could say that while the consensus inside government, I think, has turned toward disclosure, and that the benefits of disclosure are becoming increasingly more obvious, not only to people inside government, but to the American people in general, they just haven't been able to put together the right recipe to get it done. You're kicking the can down the road, which doesn't surprise anybody.
Well, here we are.
That's why we haven't had it.
We're the 2011. I mean, is Obama the man to do this? And as individuals, what can we do as people who are interested in this subject, to help force the issue and make this come about? So, what can we do personally?
Right.
Let me know.
Well, there's plenty people can do, but Obama will still likely be he's still the leading candidate to be the disclosure president for two reasons. One, the United States is still kind of the designated country for this. And two, the truth embargo is coming apart at the seams, and I honestly don't think it can make it 2 more years. But let me make clear, it's not Obama's call. He cannot disclose without the green light and the cooperation of the military intelligence cross-agency committees that run this issue, whether they're called Magic 12, Magic 7, or, the Wild Bunch, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's run down there in the military intelligence community in the deepest levels, and they don't take minutes of their meetings. Now, they will make the decision, okay, it's ready to go, and they will go to him, and they will say, you're it.
And he's going to have to go willingly or unwillingly into the night with this.
I don't think he'll put up much resistance. I don't, it'll be the greatest political legacy that any leader has probably ever had in the last 10,000 years.
I could see that.
He's not going to have trouble saying yes, but it's not his call. But the point is that the pressure on the truth embargo is so great that it's either going to be Obama very soon, or it's going to be, Hu Jintao, or possibly David Cameron, maybe Sarkozy, or maybe even Medvedev. But somebody is going to break ranks here. But I still would have to say that if you're putting your bets down, you put it down on Obama and take maybe 2 to 3 odds, right?
Well, this is Vegas. We're good for that. Now,
absolutely. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. 2 to 3 odds.
Those are pretty good.
On Obama right now.
Yeah. What do you think is going to be the outcome once this information is released to the public? What do you think how the public is going to react? Are we so far along now in accepting this that it won't be any big deal? Or do you think it will still be kind of chaotic?
Well, a discussion of what will happen after disclosure takes place is a 6-month symposium, right?
No doubt.
Let me say a few things that might be useful. First of all, disclosure will be more anticlimactic than people think because public awareness is at almost 100% of the UFO issue.
Sure.
In other words, nobody's going to go, what UFOs, what ETs? If you were to go out right now in Vegas and you were to go down on the street, and Vegas is a cross section of America, so you go down to Las Vegas Boulevard, you go down the strip, you go up to 100 people, adults, don't do kids, do people over 20, and you ask them who the Vice President of the United States is, and according to the studies, about 40 out of 100 will be able to tell you that it's Joe Biden.
Okay.
The other 60 won't know. Now, you ask them, what does UFO mean, or what is an extraterrestrial, and 100 out of 100 will know. That's virtual 100% market penetration. And so the public awareness is so high. And one of the reasons is because of Hollywood. Hollywood has feasted off this issue for 60 years. There have been so many E.T. movies we've lost track. There's dozens of them in the works, including television shows. The highest-rated movie of all time is about blue extraterrestrials. There's 2 more sequels already in production, okay, Avatar 2 and 3. So, first of all, it's going to be far more anticlimactic than people think. 2, it will be the most profound event in human history. Easy. 3, it is going to change everything. So not right away and not necessarily in huge ways, but everything is going to change to some degree or another.
And Mr. Bassett, welcome back to the show. Where we left off, we were speaking about Hollywood and their great push, into the ET world and letting everybody know. So,
well, they've raised public awareness on the concept to virtually 100%, which is helpful. But look, after disclosure, you're going to see some very substantial tidal forces start building up. The number one issue post-disclosure, as far as I'm concerned, is the public needs to get behind some of the advocacy groups with money quickly, with their support, so that we can represent their interests in Washington, or the big shots, the old-timers, are going to simply rebuild the world again under their rules and leave the rest of you out. And number one on the list of things is the technology. We know that they have developed their own version of anti-gravitic propulsion. Is that going to be available to us, or are they going to try to keep that secret? Secondly, we know they've had 60 years to study the energy systems of these craft, and they don't run on oil, gas, and coal. If they're as good as we think they are, and they could be put into public domain use with the appropriate security measures, they could transform the planet overnight within 10, 15 years. Again, we could be talking about energy systems that could deliver electrons at 1 cent on the dollar.
Right, but I mean, how are coal and oil companies going to feel about that? And are they going to fight it tooth and nail? Which I think also helps.
The oil and coal companies and nuclear companies have known this has been coming for a long time. They're not going to be surprised by this at all. I'm sure they're already making preparations of what they're going to do about it. Secondly, there's going to be a transition period. It's not going to happen overnight, and so they'll still be in business for a while. But the cost of oil will drop dramatically once disclosure takes place, and that will be a huge benefit for the world right there. And then these huge industries, which have made a fortune, right? It's not a coincidence that as in the last days of the truth embargo, and essentially the last days or near the last days of carbon-based fuels, that everything has been done to jack the price of coal and gas and oil up as high as possible, so that they could sell and sell it for as much as possible and make a fortune. And so they have made trillions of dollars, and they will be able to then reinvest that money in the post-disclosure economy, which will be operating under different energy systems, but then that will open up all kinds of new businesses, and they'll still be in the energy business. They'll just be delivering cheaper electrons. And so trust me, all those industries, they're going to shift their business plan, and they'll be fine, and they'll all still be rich, and the rich will still be rich. That's not going to change.
Well, you
now,
can see.
I'm not saying that they would have voted for disclosure if given the call. I mean, they'd probably say, look, the longer we put it off, the better. But they know as well as many other people know that the game is up. It's over. And that